I'm ready to talk about our Pat's emo boy.
Who I didn't want to play Batman at the beginning.
You didn't think he was going to be a good Batman?
No.
Why not?
I'm not a big Robert Pattinson fan, and I didn't think he had what it takes to pull it off. But the kind of Batman he played, it worked.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when it was first announced, I was kind of like, I could see it. Because, I mean, Edward Cullen, you know, young Batman, I could see it.
I didn't know anything about Batman outside of the Dark Knight trilogy. So that's what I was picturing in my head. And I'm like, he
Yeah.
can't play Christian Bale's Batman.
Well, that's a different Batman, though.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I saw Robert Pattinson in a David Cronenberg movie, Cosmopolis, and he's like a really rich boy with his hair all slicked back and everything. So I remember seeing him in that movie, and then when they announced him as Batman, I was like, okay. I mean, it makes sense.
I'd never. I had seen him in Twilight and Remember Me. And, Remember Me is like a love story too.
It's a bad movie.
So I love that movie.
That's unfortunate.
But I've only ever seen him play stuff like that. And I'm like, he can't be gritty, beating people's asses Batman.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people thought that, and I think he thought that first at too,
Yeah.
or thought that at first also, because I think there's like old interview of him when he was doing Twilight, and he was like, "There's a superhero I want to play, but I think I would get death threats if I told him who it was." And then he got Batman later on, like 20 years later. Was it 20 years later? No,
There's no way.
Twilight came out in 2008, didn't it?
Yeah, so maybe like 15?
Yeah,
Like 11,
almost.
something like that? Yeah.
Over a decade later, he gets
Yeah.
Batman, and then it turns out that was the one he was talking about.
Yeah.
But it's because everyone was just like, "Oh, Vampire Boy." I mean, even my dad said that when he found out, like he was cast. He was like,
Yeah.
"The vampire kid is gonna be Batman," and then he watched, and he was like, "He didn't do too bad."
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't know anything about Batman, so I didn't expect the like new Batman. Like he's new to being Batman.
Yeah, he's year two.
Yeah, and he's still very young and emotional and learning everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls that off.
Yeah, he's in the obsessive stage.
Yeah.
Or I think that's what Matt Reeves described as the director. He said he wanted this Batman to be like obsessive. He's just getting into it. His armor and his like suit is very just stitched together. Everything's still being put together and built. He's keeping journals of everything.
And he's not a billionaire like
Yeah.
womanizer yet.
Yeah, he's not the playboy philanthropist thing yet, which that was a lot of people complained about that when this movie first came out. They were like, we didn't see Bruce Wayne. Like, you didn't really see Bruce Wayne. But it's like, yeah, because we're not at that point in the story yet. He hasn't
Yeah.
figured out that he needs to put on that facade of being the playboy billionaire yet. He's just worried about Batman.
Yeah, and I've seen the other Batman from like when we were kids, like George Clooney's,
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton's. I've seen all those.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I've seen all those, and I remember liking them as a kid, and I liked the darkness of it. And so when I saw this, I was happy that that was brought back.
Yeah.
It's a whole vibe.
Yeah.
I love it.
I agree. Because, I mean, I love the Christopher Nolan ones with Christian Bale. But the thing about those is that when you see Gotham and stuff, it's like, it's just Chicago.
Yeah.
Like, Chicago is kind of the inspiration for Gotham, like Metropolis and New York. They kind of go side by side. So when you look at Christopher Nolan's, it's like very grounded in realism, and it's like that's cool. It works for the Christian Bale ones.
Yeah.
But then when you have stuff like Tim Burton's and then like Robert Pattinson's, it's like Gotham is like gothic. Like the set designs and stuff, even his mansion, Wayne Manor, in the new one is like all black wood and like it has the very gothic tones to it. It's all red outlines and everything. It just looks good. Like
Yeah, and the idea too is like, yeah, there's always bad guys and there's always bad stuff, but by the time you get to the Dark Knight when he's like the billionaire version, it's been cleaned up for years now, like slowly being cleaned up.
mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be as dark.
Yeah.
So
And I like darker tones.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I've always liked Batman. I've never really liked Superman, and I've never really liked anything like that, which I like Man of Steel. And I think that's why I like Man of Steel, because it's a darker Superman, and it's Snyder. I love Zack Snyder, too. And I just think that's interesting.
I've never seen Man of Steel.
Have you seen Batman v Superman?
No. I don't like DC except for Batman.
I mean, a lot of people didn't like Ben Affleck as Batman. And I loved him as Batman, too, because he was the opposite of Robert Pattinson. He's like an older, grizzled Batman who is just pissed off at the world, and he doesn't even care anymore about if he kills people or brands them or anything. He's just that pissed off.
I didn't see him play Batman. I think there was a snippet of him at the end of Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Like in the costume, but it didn't, you don't get anything out of it.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I ever saw, because it was the same thing. I did not picture Ben Affleck as Batman at all.
Yeah. I feel like that's how a lot of people were. And then they actually saw Batman v Superman, and I don't know. All of Snyder's movies are very divided. You either have people that are like, I love it, or you have people that are like, I hate it. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. There's never really any middle ground with his movies.
It's kind of too, this is kind of off topic, but it reminds me kind of the 007 movies, now that Daniel Craig is done. Mm-hmm. Whoever they pick next, everybody's going to complain about it. And because there's like a long list of things. It's the same thing with Batman. There's a long list of like criteria that you have to meet that in people's minds to be Batman. And the same thing with 007 too. Until you see it, and then people are like, okay, it works.
Yeah, I mean, even when Daniel Craig was cast, people
I'm sure,
pissed off. And the whole Casino Royale thing, everything leading up to it, before shooting and everything, every day, people would tell him to stay off the internet, because people were talking about how, oh, we have a blonde Bond now. Oh, this guy who's this indie actor who's never done a leading man role is going to be Bond. Like, people shit on him left and right. But then they saw, I think it was the picture of him getting out of the ocean. Mm-hmm. Some paparazzi got a picture of it and leaked it. And then it got on the cover of some magazine. Everyone was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see. And the same thing with R. Pats. Everyone hated R. Pats at first when he was cast. And then the picture of him leaked where he was, I think, shirtless or something. Because he made a joke. He likes to troll people in interviews and stuff. And he was like, no, I haven't been working out for Batman. Why would I do that? And I think it was during Tenet press and all that. But yeah, and then it turned out, I mean, he actually got kind of jacked for Batman.
Yeah.
But he had been working out and training all for Tenet too, with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, and I was super against it, but then I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, looks kind of good.
It did look. I mean, it looks.
I'm still on the fence, but we'll see.
Yeah, and the whole thing that leaked about the Batman before it came out also was that it was going to be like a detective noir film, which is what Batman originally was to begin with. The Greatest Detective, Detective Comics, and it was like a noir kind of base thing. So it was good that I was like, all right, cool. I'm glad they're kind of going into that territory. And they even kind of took it with like the film tropes too for noir films, because R. Pats is like a loner and all that, and then you have Catwoman, Zoe Kravitz. She's very much kind of like a femme fatale in a way.
Yeah.
And the femme fatale is always this kind of love interest in a noir film that ultimately ends up either getting the lead killed or backstabbing him or planning everything around him just to trick him, basically.
Yeah.
To victimize him. So in a way, they kind of play with the noir tropes. And it's all about criminal underbellies, gangsters. John Turturro's Falcone and everything is amazing. Colin Farrell's Penguin is amazing.
Yeah. So you and Hannah went and saw it, and then you came back and you were telling us about Colin Farrell playing Penguin. And when I finally went and saw it like a week later, I would have never guessed that was him if you hadn't told me beforehand. I would have never known.
His fat suit is great.
Yeah.
And then his accent too.
Yeah, everything about it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I loved his performance as Penguin.
Yeah, because you told me that, and I'm like, he is not Penguin. But then he was.
Yeah, he is. He's shockingly good. Because I didn't know how I felt about it when I saw the trailers. I knew it was Colin Farrell, but I was like, I don't know what he could do with it.
Yeah.
Because I guess when I think Penguin, I always think to, Tim Burton's Penguin. And I'm just like...
That's what I was thinking, too.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of campy, cheesy. But then I like the way they went with it, where he's kind of like he's kind of crippled a little bit. Yeah. And that's why he limps, and he's been kind of through the game a little bit. He's gotten scarred up, and he's kind of rising to the top.
Who did you say who was the actor that played Falcone?
John Turturro.
John Turturro.
He was the guy in like the Transformer movies, and he's been in a lot of Coen's brother movies.
Which is why I didn't take him seriously. Like, knowing that he was gonna play it, I was like,
yes.
It was another one. I was like, this is not gonna be that great. It's not gonna be serious. It's not gonna fit the movie. And it was pretty perfect. Honestly, it was good.
I was impressed with him the most because, like you said, most of the stuff that he does is usually comedy based.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never pictured him as being any kind of gangster or anything like that.
Which he's kind of like on that line in Transformers where he's kind of an ass. Mm-hmm. He's not his typical comedy self, but he has comedic moments, but he's not playing a comedy character necessarily.
Yeah.
So he's kind of on that line there, but it's still not the same vibe.
Mm-hmm. And I think this movie, like, kind of just showed how good his acting chops are. Because it went full on, there was no comedy at all. He was completely deadpan, serious, self-serious too, and it completely believable the entire time. Yeah,
I liked the history between him and Batman's dad, and like the story he tells about how he got shot, you know, and his dad fixed him up and all that, and it brought a new level. The whole movie, there were several things that brought a new level to Batman's parents and who they were, instead of them just being like the politicians who got killed.
Yeah.
It brought a new level to where maybe you can question like what kind of people they were.
Because I feel like that's how Gotham is to begin with, and there's always like a whole bunch of sketchy stuff about either Gotham's elite or like the past of his parents and everything. Because I think even like the original Flashpoint, when Barry Lyndon goes back. Barry Lyndon? That's a Stanley Kubrick movie. When Barry Allen goes back in time and saves his mom, Bruce Wayne actually ends up getting killed in the alley.
Mm-hmm.
And then his parents, the dad becomes Batman and the mom becomes Joker.
Oh, shit.
From going insane. Like, yeah, that's, like, there's different stuff, but there's always been stuff with Thomas Wayne either being corrupt. Like, even Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, they kind of touched on that, where it's like Thomas Wayne isn't the knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
And I think they even touched on that in Christopher Nolan's movies, too, where they're talking about how he did all the charity projects and everything, but he was also kind of rubbing shoulders with other people as well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I like how they did that and kind of tried to bring it into the whole, like, your family is not what they seem and the Waynes aren't what they seem. But I like how it was kind of a whole runaround, too, where Turturro just did that to manipulate him.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Wayne talked to Alfred, and then it was like, no, that's not what happened. He didn't get this guy killed, and he just saved him just because he thought that was the right thing to do. And even at the funeral thing where he was like, this guy's dad saved my life. What do you think about that? And Penguin was like, oh, no kidding, it's the Prince of Gotham. And he was like, what do you think about that, Bruce? And he was like, it's hypocrisy. And he's like, that's funny. Because he's just pissed the whole time. Because Bruce doesn't, like, again, he's at that point in his career where he doesn't care about being Bruce Wayne at all. He hates himself. He just wants to put on the cape and get stuck in that.
Be vengeance.
Yeah, he just wants to get stuck in that trauma loop where he wants to sit there and go in alleys and try and, in his mind, I guess, stop the thing that happened to him as a kid that he couldn't stop when he was a kid because he was defenseless and a child and he watched his parents die, so now he's just reliving that trauma loop, just trying to save them every time in that alley beating up these thugs, and he thinks he's making a difference. And really he's kind of, I guess, creating a feedback loop in a way, because then all of his vengeance stuff, almost, you could say it creates the Riddler.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this whole movie is kind of like him facing his own reflection, which that's usually how Batman is in any of his comics and movies. All of his villains are a reflection of himself in one way or another.
Yeah.
So I always find that interesting, the psychology of Batman.
The biggest thing that I love about this movie is the opening scene.
The home invasion scene?
It was very intense, and it was a great way to start the movie, because you're instantly like, holy shit.
What's happening?
Yes, and it's scary. It was scary. Like, because I scare easy, and seeing it and stuff like that in the theaters makes me feel more scared because I'm not at home. And so when that movie started, I was like, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
The suspense in that scene's good. Yeah. And then the whole shot where the mayor's just pacing back and forth, and then you see the TV light kind of cut out, and Riddler's just standing there in the shadow, and you just see the reflection of his glasses.
Yeah.
And also for all the listeners and viewers, Katie is the most anxiety-ridden person in the world. If we ever take her to the movies, we have to make sure that we get the top level of the theater so she can see everything around her, and she don't want anyone near her.
Yeah. I have theater anxiety on top of that.
Yep.
So
theater anxiety, then actual movie narrative anxiety.
Oh yeah.
On top of it.
I easily get sucked into stuff, which is probably why I'm a nerd. Or like explains it, but it's very real, and like I get in it in my head, and so it was like I was standing in that room watching it happen, and I'm like
you get immersed.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that is the whole point.
Yeah.
In film to begin with. Get immersed in it. Escapism, everything like that. But the home invasion scene, like you said, great way to start off the movie. And I think Matt Reeves did that intentionally. It immediately sets the tone for the entire film. You know it's going to be dark, suspenseful, eerie.
Well, and politics is such a major part of Batman movies. And so you started off and you're like, okay, this is going to set the scene for what's going on politically or whatever. And then you see the Riddler. Like, and you don't, like, going into the movie, it was so fresh. Like, I didn't know who the bad guy was going to be necessarily. I didn't know what he would look like. And you think of Jim Carrey's Riddler, so it's like, who is this? And it's just terrifying. And you see him in the shadows. And then he just beats him, and the scream he has, that makes it even, like, this man is crazy.
Oh, yeah. The Paul Dano Little Miss Sunshine scream.
Yeah.
He's a good Riddler. Which that's another surprise casting.
Yes.
I would have never pinned Paul Dano as like a leading villain, especially the Riddler. Because I think the only, which I guess is not even an antagonistic role, but I guess the only role that I ever saw him play that was kind of dark was in Prisoners.
Yeah.
And even then, he's more of a victim in that movie.
Yeah, he's very like villain. Meek and mild. Mm-hmm. And.
Which, I mean, yeah.
Well, and he's not so outspoken, like, he has an agenda in this, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which his agenda gets a little weird, I will say, but I do like the way they take it. Because I feel like it starts off with this whole idea that they want to clean up the city, essentially. And he wants to get rid of all the corrupt and bad politicians, whatever, the usual narrative. But then by the time you get to the third act, and then the screen and everything is unlocked by Robert Pattinson, he gets the video. It turns out he's basically just like a anarchist, and he's like, it doesn't matter what politician we put in power, they're all gonna be corrupt and they all suck, so I'm just gonna blow up the city.
Yeah.
And apparently Matt Reeves had to rewrite the third act for Warner Bros. So I don't know how much of the third act was changed story-wise just to fit the producers and the executives' point of view, where they were just like, no, we need the superhero moment where the guy in the cape comes down and beats the shit out of everybody. Because originally his ending was not the ending that we got. So I don't know how much of that was shoehorned in just so he could please the people funding the movie.
Yeah.
But because part of that does seem like it kind of flips a switch in the third act. But yeah, I mean, for most of the part, his intelligence level, all the riddles, and the ways he's taken people out, the serial killer ways, are very interesting.
Yeah.
I love the way he does, like, catching the people and putting, like, the mousetrap around the guy's face, like a saw trap, basically.
Yeah.
And then,
it's very Seven-esque.
Yes, there's a lot of Seven kind of stuff in there, which I don't know if Matt Reeves based a lot of it off David Fincher, but a lot of people talked about that too when the movie came out. They were like, it feels like Fincher. And it's like, I don't know if it feels like Fincher.
I wouldn't say it feels like it, but it just, the whole idea of, you know, because, you know, Seven's based on the sins of people, and it's the same idea, and just the level of riddles and puzzles and thought put into all the killings and all that. Everything had a purpose.
The writings and everything. Yeah. His apartment, I feel like, could kind of be taken away from Seven, Kevin Spacey's apartment in that. But it's like, I don't like it when people compare people to other, like, big directors. Because, like, there's only one Fincher. Yeah. And I don't care how, like, perfect you think your movie is, like, you're not Fincher.
Yeah.
Like, you're not Tarantino, you're not Scorsese. Like, that's one of my biggest problems with Joker, is that so much of Joker just takes from Scorsese's, like, King of Comedy and Taxi Driver and all that.
Yeah.
And people praised Joker like it's, like, next level shit.
I'm still on the fence about that movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was as worthy of the hype that it got.
I definitely don't think it was.
And I don't even know if I'd say I like it. I'm not sure. Like, it was interesting.
I don't like it.
It was a very interesting take, and Joaquin Phoenix did a good job. I just don't think I like it.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I think it's an interesting take, and I think the cinematography of the movie is amazing. Yeah. The cinematographer who shot Joker is incredible, but I don't like Todd Phillips as a director. Mm-hmm. In the whole movie, my biggest problem with that is that it just doesn't feel original. Yeah. All the stuff in that movie, it's like they basically just took like Scorsese stuff and just said it was Joker instead of Travis Bickle, and they're like, oh look, it's the Joker movie, and it's like, but it's not really. Yeah. You guys just stole from a lot of other people and made your own movie, and you just think you're doing something different. Even the end title card of Joker, I think it's the exact font and end credit card from Citizen Kane. Mm. It's like, how much of an ego does Todd Phillips have to make his movie kind of even feel like it has anything to do with on the level of Citizen Kane by Orson Welles, which is considered probably the best movie ever made behind like The Godfather. Like that's what people go to the most. Yeah. The mainstream people, they flock to it. They're like, Citizen Kane's the greatest movie of all time, or The Godfather is. Yeah. But it's like, what kind of ego do you have to have?
I haven't seen either of those.
Well, we'll get there eventually. Yeah. I mean, it's Cinequest. We're on it. But it's so funny because movie buffs, I feel like movie buffs are like music people. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, yeah, I like this director, or I like this artist. And then people will be like, yeah, but do you like the Beatles? Because they're the greatest band ever made. And it's like, the Beatles are overrated.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Movie people are like that, too. Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, but have you seen Citizen Kane by Orson Welles? And it's like, yeah, he's a genius, but I don't like his shit, so I don't care. I'd rather watch Twilight. It's all subjective, like it at the end of the day.
I worry about the next movie because of the snippet of the Joker at the end. Yeah. Not impressed.
Yeah, he's doing his best Heath Ledger impression.
Right.
Again, it's like the Joker thing with Joaquin Phoenix. It's like Todd Phillips, there's only one Martin Scorsese. Or, it's like there's only one Heath Ledger. Stop trying to be him.
And I very much, that's one of my favorite, like, acting things in a movie. Like, that's that's top tier to me is Heath Ledger's Joker. I don't want to see it again anywhere else. No. Because you can't do it. Yeah. Don't try to do it. And let's do something different. Mm-hmm. And, like, I don't know. Hot take. I liked
Jared Leto Joker.
Jared Leto Joker.
Yes.
I did, but people want it to be Heath. Everybody wants everything to be Heath Ledger's Joker, but I liked Jared Leto's because that was the gangster type. Mm-hmm. It was a different vibe, a different movie. It was supposed to be like that, which is why I never had a problem with it.
I never had a problem with it either.
Yes,
and the fact that he had a grill was so cool because they like, I think David Ayer said after the movie came out, where he was like, yeah, the reason Joker has a grill in Suicide Squad is because all of his teeth have been knocked out from Batman. Yeah. It's like that. See, that kind of stuff is interesting to me. Yeah. And I like how he was all tatted up. Yeah. It's like, I love it when people take a character and just do a whole new take on it. But then, of course, that's the reason why he got so much shit. It's because people were like, this isn't the Joker. And it's like, yeah, but in reality, though. If you take the character the Joker, and my friend Chandler has said this too, where it's like, if you take this character the Joker and you put him in like a modern world with the internet, like with Snapchat, with all this stupid shit, you want the Joker to be this kind of eccentric, weird, out there dude. He's gonna look like a fuckboy, e-boy, stupid bitch. Like it makes sense with his hair all slicked back and everything.
And I feel like that version of him went perfectly with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Yes. And it just makes sense.
And now we get to see Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn.
Even though I'm on the fence about the Joker movie, I would like to see her as Harley Quinn because she's amazing.
Yes, I've never been disappointed by a Lady Gaga performance in any movie I've seen her in. Like,
even when I haven't been a fan of the movie, I'm still like, she had it.
Yeah, I mean, Star is Born, great. Yeah. House of Gucci, great.
House of Gucci, I wasn't necessarily a fan of the movie, but she killed her performance in it. So
she did.
Yeah,
I think she stole the whole movie in House of Gucci.
If somebody else played her, that movie wouldn't have been as good.
I agree. And I feel like Joker 2 is gonna be so much different than the first one. It feels like Todd Phillips like did a movie with the first Joker just because he knew he would make money, and then he knew he would be able to get away with making an outlandish sequel, because that's exactly what Folie à Deux sounds like.
Yeah.
Like, it's all from Harley Quinn's perspective, and it's a musical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds nothing like the first one, and it's like, where is he going with this? Like, is he actually going to do his own thing now instead of making the Taxi Driver ripoff? Are we actually going to see something original now?
Yeah.
I'm much more interested in that, and I think that actually sounds a lot more interesting, which is another thing why I'm worried about Batman 2, because I don't want to see another Heath Ledger Joker, and I wasn't impressed with that guy's cameo in the Batman either, and it felt so forced in there by studio execs. It's like, all right, we got to put Joker in here.
It kind of felt clown-like, like actual like circus clown-like.
Yeah.
Like it gave me like circus clown vibes. And yeah, he's got the makeup, but he's not supposed to be a circus clown.
Yeah.
And his voice, I think I have an issue with how young he felt. Because we didn't, but I know this is like the beginning, like year 2 of Batman. And so it's like, you know, maybe it's supposed to be earlier, younger Joker, but it felt like there was like a 15-year-old behind that door. And I just, it didn't give me the right vibe.
That's how I felt about it. I get he's supposed to be younger, but at the same time, it's like, look at Robert Pattinson though. Like he looks young.
Yeah.
But he's also very tall, and he got kind of jacked for it, and he still kind of has like a very mature look to him. And then you got this kid that's like 5'8", like my height. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and dye my hair green and be like, yeah, I can take on Arpad's Joker. I mean, Arpad's Batman. Like, you know, you have to make it feel at least a little believable. Like, Jared Leto's Joker would be more believable to Arpad's Batman than this random kid.
Yeah, because he still at least looked like he could fight or pull out a gun or do something.
Yeah.
And be a little crazy.
I saw this dude, whatever his name is, I don't know his name, but he was in, you know, Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Eternals, all this. I've seen him before. So it's like, I know this kid is, like, small.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though Joker is much more about anarchy, causing a whole bunch of mayhem, just ruining lives and stuff, he still needs to be able to defend himself or do something.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, you have Jokers that kill Robin, like, with crowbars and stuff, and I could not see this guy that's playing Joker be able to beat the shit out of a Robin with a crowbar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, they may not put any scenes like that, you know, any physical scenes.
Well, yeah, I guess he could be like Riddler, and he might just never even have any real physical contact with Batman.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I don't know.
I want an intimidation factor from a Joker.
He's still a villain.
Yeah.
And he looks like a squeaky toy.
Yeah, exactly. Like Paul Dano, I still got an intimidation factor from him.
Yeah. Like he probably can't fight you, but he's crazy as fuck and probably left a bomb in your car for when you leave.
Yeah.
Like
he doesn't need to fight you. He's gonna plan something. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that Joker needs to fight or anything, but I still need to feel some kind of intimidation factor.
Well, not only that, but the Riddler's kind of like on his own, like doing his own thing. The Joker's supposed to be like, he has like crew members. Like he bosses people around and gets people to do his bidding, and it doesn't fit.
No, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
But he's also not someone who's scared to get his own hands dirty.
That too.
And do his own shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see it with this kid, and maybe he'll prove me wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody we've talked about proved us wrong in this movie.
That's true.
So maybe it'll work. I hope it does, but that's just my first impression.
Yeah. That was one of my biggest issues when Batman first came out. When this one came out, was when I was watching it, I was like, I hate that they put all these Joker scenes in here. It just felt so unnecessary, especially like with Riddler and him in the jail cell at the end too, talking to each other in the jail cells. I'm like, this just isn't necessary to the film whatsoever.
Well, you bring that up. I love the Lego games. And Lego Batman was the first one I ever played. And I've actually played that one through more times than Harry Potter, like 100%ed it. Yeah. I love that game. And part of why I love it is because you go through the levels and you get to face so many of the different villains. And there's like outside of the levels, you can go from the Batcave to Arkham, and all of the villains are running around in there. And this movie kind of gave me that like OG Batman feel, and that at the end kind of made it seem like Riddler and Joker were gonna team up, and it gave me kind of like a nostalgic vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
But then I was disappointed because I don't want him to be the Joker when they do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It sucks that they put that at the end because you go through the whole movie and then it's like, well, that just fucked it up because now I'm not excited for the second one.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but I don't know. It looks like they're going the long Halloween route with this. I don't even know how many movies they're gonna make with our Pats. I don't know if it's gonna just be 1, 2, or if they're gonna do a trilogy.
I thought I heard it was gonna be a trilogy.
I don't know, but I know the long Halloween I think was 2 parts. But I could be wrong about that. I haven't read those graphic novels in a long time. But the way it ended is, of course, Gotham just being completely closed off, and now it's flooded. And now Penguin kind of has his own little area to himself. He doesn't have to worry about Falcone because he's been killed off. And then you got Joker and Riddler and Arkham. And I don't know, it feels like they're going to kind of go the route, like you said, where you have a whole bunch of villains team up. Because even in the long Halloween, I think like it was Two-Face, Poison Ivy. Like you had all the crew coming at Batman because the whole city's closed off. And I feel like that could be the route they go. I don't know, because they definitely kind of left it on a little cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not a fan of that when movies do that. I like it when movies are singular stories in themselves. Like you can watch it on its own and it's good. And if it's a part of a franchise, you should still just be able to watch it on its own. Marvel, but it's like it pisses me off when movies are like, oh yeah, you have to link it to something else. It's like, no, you don't. You can just have singular storytelling and then just continue the singular storytelling.
Dark Knight was kind of like that.
Exactly.
Because I did not know that Batman Begins existed, and when Dark Knight came out, it was such a big deal. Everybody watched it, and then the second, which I guess would technically be the third, came out, and I didn't watch that because I was there for Heath Ledger. I'll just be honest. Yeah. And so The Dark Knight Rises came out and I never watched it. A few months ago, Scott was like, I want to watch all the Batman movies, blah, blah, blah. So he puts in Batman Begins. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This isn't The Dark Knight. That's what I signed up for. And he's like, this is the first one. I had no idea.
And I think that's why The Dark Knight is so highly praised. I mean, you can watch it on its own without watching Dark Knight Rises or Batman Begins and just be like, oh, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
And that's how the best movies usually are, is that you can watch them outside of their own little bubble or inside of it, and it works both ways.
Yeah.
Unlike a Marvel movie, if you turn on fucking whatever movie they're on now, if you turn it on, you're probably going to be sitting there like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What have I missed?
Yeah. And because this is a side note, but I've only seen the Iron Man ones and the Avenger ones, and going into an Avenger one, I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch these 5 movies before I can understand how we got here.
Yeah. I unfortunately used to be big in them, but that was because I was introduced to them when the first Iron Man came out, when Marvel Studios was still an independent studio.
Yeah.
And I've unfortunately followed them all the way through their Disney era, and it just kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. I've followed enough. I'm tired of this kind of mode of filmmaking, which I wouldn't even call it filmmaking, this franchise making, where it's just like, oh yeah, all we care about is commodity and serialization of storytelling, and there's actually no depth or thought put into it whatsoever. It's like, how can we make this as much like a factory as we possibly want to? Just turn these things out.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they're not doing that with the Batman, though.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Batman 2 isn't even coming out till 2025, I think.
Yeah. It frustrates me that they take so long to do stuff, but I know when they do that, it's probably going to be better, because these movies that it's like they pump one out every year, they just get worse and worse.
Oh, Marvel pumps them out more than one every year.
Yeah.
I think, what was it? Last year there was like 5 of them in 1 year? Something like that. I don't know. It's ridiculous, but I'm glad that the Batman is kind of its own separate thing. I'm glad Matt Reeves got his own little pocket that was kind of even outside the DCU. It's kind of just its own little thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when they do that. And I hope it goes well. I hope it goes well because I like the way that I like Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman.
Speaking of
I think she's good.
I really loved her. I love Zoe Kravitz anyways. I really liked her, and I don't really care for any of the women in other stuff. Like, I didn't care for Anne Hathaway's portrayal. It seems like not to. It seems like, yes, based on the comics, they're probably supposed to be over-sexualized. But when you make the female over-sexualized and there's not much else going on.
Just bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, they're doing bad stuff, like stealing this or, doing this or whatever. But there's no real character depth. And they're in their little skin-tight costumes. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, can she at least be cool? Like, can she at least be doing something, have a purpose? And you get her whole backstory and, the stuff with her mom, and then Falcone's her dad, and her trying to, like, kill him at the end. Like, there was actual character depth there. She wasn't just sexy in her skin-tight leather suit.
Yeah.
So.
Which I didn't like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman either. I don't like Anne Hathaway.
I'm not a big Anne Hathaway fan either.
Not to be mean, but I just don't even think... I don't think she's a good actress. I've never been impressed by any performance. I don't think of... Yeah, I was trying to go through, like, the catalog of movies that I've seen her in, and I was just like, I don't think I've ever watched a movie with her in it, and I've just been like, yeah, that's a performance.
Yeah.
But Zoe Kravitz, though.
Yeah.
As Catwoman, I was actually genuinely impressed. I was like, this is cool. I like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think her and R. Pats have such good chemistry together. Shockingly.
Yeah, and and that's what I'm saying, like, their interactions weren't total, like, cheesy sexual tension between the hero and the villain. Like, there was something real there. Like, they're trying to help each other out. They're also using each other at the same time to get what they want at the end of it. But she's intelligent. She's trying, like the emotional performance that she did in the scene when they're up on
the abandoned building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole scene where she's trying to convince them and she's going to kill the guy, and it was...
because she heard the phone message and
yes.
everything. Yeah, because at first she's trying to find her friend.
Right.
And then she finds out the friend's dead. And then she finds out Falcone killed her friend. And she finds out the whole conspiracy and just everything. And she's pissed because she thought Batman would kill that guy with her. Like, basically, the femme fatale thing, where she's sitting there and she's like, I'm going to rope this guy in. He's going to help me out. I'm going to help him out a little bit, a little give and take. And then by the end, I'm going to get him on my side. And then I'm going to have this vigilante that's going to help me take all these guys down. And then she realizes, oh, shit, he's got a moral compass.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It was just nice for her not to just, do 3 somersaults into the building and play cat and mouse and then disappear.
Yes, but I mean, she does do a little bit of that.
Yes, but she...
It's in cool ways, though.
Yes, and their relationship isn't just she shows up and he's like, oh, it's built up throughout the entire movie. I'm trying to get out what I'm trying to say.
Spit it out, Junior.
I know. It feels like a real relationship. Like, they meet each other. They spend the time.
You feel them actually.
She's not necessarily a villain.
Yeah.
And it's like you can understand where she's coming from. She's not just some random bitch that pops up and you just know she's a villain. Mm-hmm. Like, you can see all the layers of why she would act this way. And she's not necessarily a bad guy. They're just on different fields with their moral compass.
I think what you're trying to say is she's not a two-dimensional character.
Yes, basically.
She's more complex.
Yes.
And they've actually have, like, a character arc for her.
Yes.
She actually has motivations behind everything. She's not just, like you said, popping up in scenes. I keep thinking,
who is it that plays her in the older ones? Is it Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yes, in the Tim Burton one, yeah.
Awful. Awful.
Well, I don't know.
Awful.
I don't know. I think Michelle Pfeiffer was pretty cool. But my thing is, though, is I just really like the shot in that one when she has the hello there, like neon light in her apartment, and then when she becomes Catwoman and she starts smashing up her apartment and everything and breaking everything, there's that wide shot outside her apartment of her in the window, and she's knocked out some of the lights on that sign that says hell here instead of hello there. Like little stuff like that impresses me, and I love it when movies do stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, the Tim Burton Batmans are very cheesy, high on camp, you know. Jack Nicholson Joker.
Yeah.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moon? Like, you know, it's really cheesy, but it's still kind of enjoyable in the way. But it's definitely, I like Michelle Pfeiffer more than Anne Hathaway, though. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. But I think Zoe Kravitz is better than both of them.
Yeah.
Because the scene when she actually jumps down and she's trying to steal money from Penguin, and then she finds the body of her friend in the trunk, that was a pretty good shock factor moment. Yeah. And then that was also the great moment when we get to see the Batmobile.
Yes.
Which is a great intro to that, because he shoots at our Pats and he falls on the ground, and she looks at him, he's like, oh my god, is he knocked out? And then she runs behind a car and hides, and then all of a sudden Penguin walks over there shooting at him again, and he looks down and he's not there anymore, and then you just hear the engine rev up, and it's like, oh yeah.
That scene when he's coming out of the fire is super iconic.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of good iconic shots, and I think the score, like his actually main Batman theme, is great. Because I think Matt Reeves, the director, said that the guy who composed this movie, he composed the entire movie without footage.
Really?
He did it just off the script, which is the same thing that the Ludwig guy did for Tenet. He composed the whole thing just off the script. And so when they said the first time he did a screen test in the Batman costume, Matt Reeves walked up to our Pats and actually played the Batman main theme for me. He was like, this is your theme. What do you think? And that was what they was playing when they were doing the original screen test shots of him in the costume for the first time. And he was like, it just set the whole mood of how it was going to be.
That's pretty cool.
Because it's a very good theme song. It was stuck in my head after I first saw it.
Yeah.
Like how deep and like drum it is and everything. And the reverb on that thing. Because I watched it in IMAX, so it just shook the whole theater when it was... Especially when he's walking out the fire towards Penguin. That was probably the loudest moment in the entire movie.
Side note, just so people can get to know me better. I do not like IMAX, but I am hard of hearing majorly, and I have to watch movies with subtitles because of that. But IMAX is so loud. There are some times where I have to cover my ears, and I leave with a headache. It is so unnecessarily loud. And that's coming from someone who can't hear well.
You're missing out.
I'm not.
IMAX is the best. And subtitles are the worst.
What did we watch?
Subtitles are the bane of my existence. Because anytime I want to watch a movie with you guys are just like, yeah, let's ruin the cinematography of this entire movie with little white letters going on the bottom of the screen. And then IMAX is like a concert experience. And I want that. I want the movie to rattle me. Like, I don't want to be able to hear the fuckers behind me eating popcorn. And I love it. I think when we saw... Oh, yeah, we went to opening night at Tenet. And, you know, that opening opera house scene?
Yeah.
And the bass is bumping? Oh, my God. It's so good. I want it to be an experience. I love IMAX. But I'm also... I don't know. I guess I just have a weird hearing tolerance. So I guess it's not a hearing tolerance. I guess a weird threshold. Because there have been times where Hannah's also covering her ears, and she's like, this is ridiculous. And I'm just over there like, let's go. I don't know. I guess I just don't care. But I get that some people get aggravated by it. Because there's been a lot of people that complain to me about IMAX stuff. Even my dad. And I'm just like, come on, man. Yeah. Just let it immerse you. Just get into it.
I can get into it without my ears bleeding.
Have your ears ever bled walking out of that theater?
Felt like it sometimes. We went and saw one. I think it was the Spider-Man movie.
Which, No Way Home?
Yeah, the last Spider-Man movie. And I was directly under the speaker. I was fucking miserable during that entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on where you seat, it could be pretty bad under that.
Yeah, because one of the, commercials at the beginning, I know it's not called a commercial. One of the trailers at the beginning, it was so... That's when I was like this, because it was so loud. And I was like, this is not a good way to start this movie. I want to go home.
It's the best way to start a movie. I like it so loud. Just turn it up. Which, I mean, I don't know. I think IMAX is probably the best viewing experience. But the reason IMAX is even a thing to begin with is because they needed some way to improve the movie theater experience from what it usually was. Because that's how movie theaters have always progressed. They've always tried to be one step ahead of what the television was. Movies first came out, it's Nickelodeon's, all that, and then when the TV finally came out in like the 40s and 50s, movie theaters were like, oh shit, we gotta have like color, we have to have orchestra sound, surround sound, we gotta have all this stuff now, and they started just, anytime the TV does something, and now, people got home entertainment systems. So now movie theaters are like, well, now we need IMAX. So it's like every time they're trying to make sure that they still give you a reason to go to the theater. Instead of just being like, oh, just watch it at home. Because the movie theater experience might die in our lifetime, and that is so sad.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, the video store thing has already died, which was a bummer.
That is a bummer. I'm pissed that there's not a Blockbuster in my neighborhood. I wish I could still go to a movie store and just rent a movie, or just have a movie store in general. To just like, oh yeah, all they sell here is movies. That'd be great.
Yeah. Because you know this, but I'm just sharing it for more information. I worked at the grocery store, and they had a video department, and that's where I worked. And that was when my love for movies, I've always liked movies, and I've always seen a wide variety of movies, but that was when it like really kicked off. Yeah. Because I was watching I every week on Tuesdays when the new movies came out, I would have the whole list, all of them in front of me, and I would take like 5 of them home. That's when I started watching movies heavily, and they would take the rental copies after they phased out, and they would mark them down. And you could buy them a whole Blu-ray for $5.
Yeah, it's cheap.
And so I started collecting the movies, and then it just rolled on. And then Hannah met you, and now I have a Letterboxd and everything else.
That's my contribution to everybody I meet. Get a Letterboxd. Watch more movies. That's all you gotta do. I think the other great thing, though, about movies now, and I think we've seen that more in this changing landscape, is that we've seen a lot more like pushing 3-hour mark movies. And I love that. I know a lot of people complain about it, but the Batman being like 177 minutes long, and then you got Beau is Afraid that just came out, and then, I mean, even like John Wick Chapter 4, 179 minutes long. Another way to fight TV, because, TV now has like 90-minute episodes. Yeah. So now movies are like, all right, we got to fucking double that.
Well, hell, Game of Thrones, their last 2 seasons, one episode of the season was $1 million movie. Like,
exactly.
It's outrageous.
Movies have to try and just stay kind of in the relevancy. Yeah. In some way. But I like long-form movies. I think long-form storytelling like that is very interesting. Like The Irishman by Martin Scorsese. Over 3 hours long. And then people still tried to sit there and make, like, cut-off points for the movie where they're like, you can watch it in 4 parts, like a TV show, and here are the stopping points. It's like, don't do that. Yeah. Do not do that. You're ruining the movie by doing that.
If it's done right, if you're not just making it this long to make it this long, like the Batman, there was not any lagging. Like, it didn't feel like I was in there for 3 hours. Like,
very well paced.
Yeah. It was great. Yeah. But there are some movies where it's like, you didn't have to do all this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. I don't think every long movie is a good movie automatically. Yeah. Some directors are very self-indulgent, and they're also they're just like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to leave this shot in of just this person just walking, and it's like...
Yeah, that's like The Stand. It's The Stand and something else. They were both made for TV. They were both Stephen King.
Well, I think the original It was made for TV.
That's what it is. Yeah. I watched those when I was younger, and I loved them, but they were made for TV because they were like 4 hours long. Mm-hmm. So they did hour-long episodes of each. And you could buy them. Like, I think my grandparents had them both on like VHS or something. But I've been excited, which it was better. I think The Stand was remade into a TV show recently, but it didn't look good. I would be excited to see something like that given the chance at a movie, because you could make it 3 or 4 hours long if you did it right, and it just be the movie and not be put into the episode format.
Watch Lawrence of Arabia.
I don't know.
It's like 228 minutes long, I think.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, that's like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, that movie's over 4 hours long, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is about 4 hours because it's broke up into 2 parts.
I don't like Gone with the Wind, but yeah.
I love Gone with the Wind, which I'm biased because I'm named after the main character, but I really do like it, and I can sit there and smash both sides of the VHS.
Gone with the Wind sucks. But
why do you think it sucks? I'm interested in this.
I just do not like that movie. I don't know. Certain movies like that, I think it's more about how hyped they are.
Yeah.
And how much people talk about them. And then when I actually sit down and watch it, it's probably not the movie's fault in and of itself. It's probably more the culture's fault.
Yeah.
Like Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Hot take, I don't like Forrest Gump either.
Forrest Gump sucks.
Horrible.
Overhyped. But I think it's this point to where it's like my brain just automatically, if someone sits there and builds this whole facade around a movie where they're like, yeah, it's the greatest thing ever made, and I watch it and it's like, okay, it's a melodrama.
Yeah.
In the South, couple big set pieces with like couple war stuff, and then it's like this all centered around this very cliched classic Hollywood romance. Yeah. Like it's like, okay, this movie is very cut and dry and also very cookie cutter, I guess. Yeah. Like it's just like I've seen this all before. Not that impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I get not being impressed by it now, and I'm not saying it's like the greatest movie ever. At the time, I can understand why it got the hype at the time, and because it had so many firsts in like movie history.
Yeah,
and then it's based in Georgia, so it had a huge premiere. It's popular where we live. There's the Terra Museum and all the shit. I get all that, but I still think it's a good movie. And this is coming from someone who does not like older movies. When I sit down to an older movie, I instantly am like, I'm gonna hate this. So with that being said, for me to like that movie, I think it's good.
Yeah, there's so many good older movies though.
I mean, you're right, and sometimes my mind has changed. Like Psycho,
I love Psycho.
Is really good. I'll admit that, but it's going into a movie like if it looks like that and you start playing it, I'm like, oh god.
See, I'm the opposite. I love older looking movies. I love seeing the film grain. I love having that analog feel to it. I love how it feels like very just, I wouldn't say homemade. That's not the word I'm looking for. I like the very raw feel of old movies. And I actually I've noticed a lot lately with a lot of these new movies that are coming out. Luckily, the Batman didn't really suffer from this because it had a lot of very depth and field, very nice hyper-focused shots. And some of it actually looked like, I think they put film grain overlay on it. But there's like, a lot of these newer movies that have been coming out, you can just tell. These people are filming them in 4K, polishing it up as much as they possibly can, especially like Marvel movies and stuff.
It's
and it just
so polished, it looks fake.
It looks too artificial.
Yes.
And I hate that. And when I watch a movie, I want it to look like film. I want it to feel like film. And I feel like that's why I really like old movies. And I think my favorite kind of old movies are ones that feel timeless. Yeah. Like Gone with the Wind, I think that's also another issue that I have with that movie. It doesn't feel timeless.
Yeah.
It feels very just kind of confined in and of itself. And it's like, this didn't age well.
Yeah.
But then I can watch Psycho and it's like, nah, this thing still hits. Yeah. Like, this thing is still good to this day.
Yeah.
And it still has a lasting impact. Which, I mean, I guess people can argue Gone with the Wind still has a lasting impact. But not to me. I love movies that are timeless.
Yeah.
Like, I can watch, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and it's like, yeah, this movie still feels like it could have been made today, and it was made in the 60s. Or I could watch like 2001: A Space Odyssey or something like that, and it's like, this is still impressive.
Yeah. Talking about that, me and Scott watched the Last of Us show. Have you played that game?
I've played parts of the first game, haven't played part 2.
I haven't played part 2 either. But do you remember the scene with the giraffe when they feed the giraffe?
Yes.
So that scene is in the show.
Oh, is it?
And it was so overdone that I thought the giraffe was CGI. And then the next day, after we watched it the night it came out, the next day there was an article about the giraffe and it was real. But the scene was so overdone, it looked, because it's, like giraffes stick it had a CGI background.
Oh,
and, but you know how giraffes stick their tongue out to eat and it's like weird. That whole scene, like just watching the giraffe do its thing and everything, it looked terrible. And like me and Scott talked about it, I was like, that was the worst CGI giraffe I've ever seen. That was so weird. That was such a weird scene. And the next morning it's a article about the giraffe and it was real.
Yeah, probably because they saw all the internet hate he was getting and they were like, we got to prove it was real.
Yeah.
Which, not to keep going back to Marvel, but Marvel does the same shit. Tom Holland has a legit practical suit for Spider-Man, yet every time he puts it on, they overlay it with like a CGI lens.
Yeah.
Well, not a CGI lens, but they overlay it with like a layer of CGI over his practical costume.
Well, not to defend it, but he's in a more modern stance where a lot of times he's in like stuff that Iron Man built, you know, and it has like gadgets built in and like stuff like that, and the practical suit may not convey that very well.
I'm not talking about the Iron Man stuff. I'm talking about in Homecoming, the first one, when he even has the
before all that happens.
When he even has the cotton suit on, like there's some stuff where it looks like it's like, or maybe that's just the the editor just polishing up the screen. But even like his original little hand knit costume and stuff, it's like, why does it look like that's CGI'd onto him?
Yeah.
Like he's wearing a real practical suit. Like, look at Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. That's a real practical suit.
Yeah.
And you can tell. It looks good.
Yeah.
Still looks good. But then you have...
I'm a fan... I mean, CGI is good, and it gets you... It's gotten us a lot further with movies and things that we're capable of viewing. But I'm a big fan of practical stuff because it's very impressive when you're able to pull it off.
Yeah. And it I think practical ages way better than CGI. CGI always...
Not always.
Well... It depends. I mean, I think practical always works because no matter when you watch it later on down the road, like I could sit there and take something like the original Evil Dead movie or something like that and take it 50 years from now and watch it and be like, still works. But if you take something like, I don't know, what's a really bad CGI movie? I'm trying to think. Like iRobot or something with Will Smith? I don't know, or like even I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Yeah.
Those vampires, zombies, whatever creature they're supposed to be. You take that movie like 50 years down the road and it's like, look at this, and everyone's gonna be like,
yeah,
what's going on here with the CGI? It's because CGI is always evolving, so everyone always sees something and they're like, that's pretty good, and then you look at it 5 years later and you're like, that's not so good.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because like thinking about practical effects in Raising Arizona, when John Goodman is coming out and his friend, I don't know the actor's name, are coming out of the ground after and now with the way TVs are and everything being upgraded, you can see like the foam or whatever under the ground.
Yeah, like Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton.
Where they come out of it. But at the same time, it's like you can still respect seeing it. Like you can see the effect now. You can still respect that they came up with the idea to be able to pull off somebody coming out of the ground. Whereas if it's CGI, it's just like, y'all knew better putting this out there.
Exactly. Like, you can put anything CGI in a movie, and it won't age well no matter what.
Yeah.
Because unless you're James Cameron.
Well.
Because you can watch the first Avatar, and it still looks amazing.
That's true.
We just rewatched the first Avatar, and that came out in, I think, also, like, 2008, 9, something like that.
Yeah.
Looks amazing. And then the new Avatar. Incredible looking.
Yeah.
And it's probably, which he says that he does that on all of his movies though. He future proofs them.
Yeah.
So they age well. Which I mean, I'm glad with the Batman too. Like his suit looks so good and it's practical. I love seeing our Pats in the suit, and I love the Batmobile. It's practical. That whole car chase scene works so well. It looked like almost all stuff in the Batman was practical. Except for, I think, the skylines.
Yeah, I liked the Batmobile in this one. If it was kind of a nostalgic feel as well. Yeah. I mean, I liked the one in Dark Knight. It was very...
The Tumbler?
Yeah, it was very tank-like and made sense for rich Batman, but...
Yes.
This one was very nostalgic. Yeah. Something else, too, that I want to point out is the way things looked, like the drop heads. And like that group that he was gonna fight, it starts out with that kid on the train.
Those were actually Joker goons.
Oh, were they?
I believe so.
Well, they all just like the different masks and like different stuff, how they were dressed and everything. Yeah, it was very unique to this movie, also. Yes,
apparently the guys on the train that jumped the dude at the beginning, those were Jokers. And then the drop heads. Then you had all the guys wearing the costumes and stuff because it was Halloween. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, again, the aesthetic of the movie. Yeah. It just looks so good. Everything's so dark and dreary. And that's a great intro for R. Pat's Batman. Because it was a great intro for the movie to have the home invasion.
Yeah.
But then it was also great to have him basically do like a Bear Jew scene from Inglourious Basterds where he walks out the tunnel. And it just fit immediately, the way he looked and everything. And he absolutely beats the shit out of those dudes. And it's great to see I guess a merciless Batman is always fun to watch. And of course he pulls the same thing that Ben Affleck's Batman does, where by the end he's kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be so merciless.
Yeah.
I'm still a vigilante, but maybe I shouldn't just be like such a crazy psycho.
Yeah.
Because clearly it's reflecting back at me. You get what you put into it. So I like that whole aspect, because I think one of the best scenes in the whole movie was when he saves Zoe Kravitz by doing the adrenaline shot.
Yeah.
After he gets shot with a shotgun. And he absolutely beats the shit out of this dude. And then he takes off the mask, and Gordon's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Vengeance." And the camera just cuts back to R. Pat's Batman, and he just looks horrified at the fact that his own words are being spit back at him by this, this guy who is about to basically do a mass shooting.
Yeah. Or
help with a mass shooting. I don't know, I think that's a very good duality for that movie to have, where it's like, the feedback loop, where it's like what you're doing is not actually all good, like even though you're a vigilante. And I think it's so funny that so many people complained about that scene, about how he like flew back and it took him forever to stand up and everything. It's like, you guys realize he got shot in the chest with a double barrel shotgun. Yeah. Like, he may have armor on, but that's still gonna fucking hurt. And he probably has the wind knocked out of him.
Oh, for sure.
I love the adrenaline shot too.
Yeah.
I think that's so great that he has on his utility belt and he just gets up and just goes crazy. Even Catwoman in that scene, Zoe Kravitz, like, it cuts to her real quick too, and she's like,
yeah,
Jesus, dude, chill out. She's like, the fuck's your problem? I'm good. I love scenes like that when characters just go completely feral.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Gosling in Drive, when he goes completely feral in that movie. It's one of my favorite scenes. I just love seeing characters reach their breaking limit.
Well, it's just very real life.
Yes.
Because people do lose their shit like that.
Yes. And it's so enjoyable to see stuff like that. Because I think it has a lot more dynamic to it. Yeah. I don't think anyone likes a stagnant character. Mm-mm. It's so boring. Yeah. I think my other big problem with the Batman, this is something I do not like. Voiceovers in movies. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that can make or break a movie. And I guess it didn't really break this movie, but it's like, if it's not done perfectly right to me, it comes across as either corny or like cheesy. Mm-hmm. And I think the voiceover at the end where he's talking about, I don't need to fight for vengeance anymore. I need to be a force of good and hope and all that. It's just way too corny to me. And I'm just like, y'all should not have put this in here. Makes it feel like a kind of preachy thing, and I'm like, I don't want.
I thought you were talking about the voiceover at the beginning.
I don't mind the one at the beginning.
And I was gonna say I liked that, but you're right. I didn't care for the one at the end.
I just think they probably should have done another take of R. Pat's doing the last one. It sounds too hopeful. Yeah. For Batman to me, which that might just be my own bias. But I like how at the beginning it's like him doing his obsessive journal entries, and he's like Gotham and all this. It kind of sounds like Rorschach from Watchmen, but I don't. Yeah. I don't like how the end. It just sounds way too hopeful to me. It sounds like they're trying to gloss it all over. Yeah. Give it that, which that might be another WB executive's studio note where they're like, you got to put this in here, make it like a hopeful superhero movie. It's like, just keep it dark. I like the dark shit, and that's why I like Batman. Keep it dark. Yeah. I don't want this hopeful shit. It's corny to me. It's always corny.
When you said that you didn't like cliffhangers and stuff, but I thought that the way it ended was good, where like the whole city's flooded, because it may just be my like fear of water in that way that it got me, but it's just like, how do we financially recover from this? Like, this is over. Like, just move.
What are we going to do? The whole city's flooded.
Right. And so it's just, it brings out so much worry and, like, thought about it that I'm anxious to know, like, how do you get to the next movie from here? Like, are they going to start it off after, it's been rebuilt, or, like, is it going to be fresh after the flooding? Like, there's so many questions. And a lot of times cliffhangers just piss me off and I don't care about them. But this one got my mind rolling of, what is next?
Yeah.
So, I didn't have a big problem with the cliffhanger on this movie.
I guess my biggest issue with it is that you could probably make a strong case that the last, like, 20 minutes of the Batman is, like, all just tying up all the threads of all the different narratives that they had just to build up to this fact that they want a second one.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just don't like movies that do that to a degree at that point, because it's because we have to see Riddler in jail, him talk to the Joker, we have to see Penguin now without Totoro, Falcone around.
Yeah.
And now the city's flooded and he has the iceberg lounge and all that. It's like we have to see Batman, we have to see Catwoman going their separate ways, we have to see this, we have to see Gordon. Like, I don't like that. Like, I want it all.
Yeah, I get that. And
feels like we're cutting too much.
Yeah. I could have done without some of those scenes. Like, maybe show the Batman Catwoman thing. Maybe.
I like that final shot.
Yeah.
When he's driving on the motorcycle. I think it's a good final shot.
And when it rounds out, like, their whole thing throughout the movie.
Yes.
And I felt like that needed to be ended. But showing, like, the Joker scene, where this person's at and where this person's at.
Yes.
We didn't have to do all that. They could have just done the Batman and Catwoman scene and then, like, the pan out of the city, you know?
Yep.
And that would have been good enough.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like the cliffhangers stuff, because it always feels like it's like we're going out of our way to make it to where, oh yeah, this needs to be a franchise. It's like, stop worrying about this being a franchise and just make the best movie you possibly can right now. Not trying to make it the best possible part of a series that you want to do.
Well, and if you want us to know what happens to all these characters later, that's what the second movie is for.
Yeah, if you get a second movie, then we can go from there.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have been a much better ending if, like, you know, the whole city gets flooded, he saves Real, Riddler's arrested or whatever, gets caught, which he already was, I guess. He was already arrested by the end. The thugs are dealt with, and then now we know the whole city's flooded already, and then we just see Batman and Catwoman go their separate ways. Movie done.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have ever been the Joker added scene, Riddler being pissed off, Penguin.
You know, Penguin's getting his own spinoff show on HBO Max.
Don't even get me started. It's so stupid. Not every character has to have a spinoff. Not every character needs a TV show.
We don't have to do a deep dive into every person ever in every universe.
Yeah, and that's a thing too. I love Colin Farrell. Loved his Penguin. Colin Farrell's immensely talented, but I don't want to see a whole show of him. I mean, I don't want to see any show, period. But still, it's like I don't want to see a whole TV show about the Penguin. Like, how interesting could that be?
Sometimes things just need to be the way that they are.
Yes.
And that's just good enough.
Everyone just wants to drain everything now to its highest possible degree. It's like, yeah, Star Wars has a Andor show. The one weird side character from Rogue One,
right.
Which is already a filler in of itself. It's like, let's make a filler from a filler and just keep this train going. Like, that's what I'm saying. Disney's the worst about it.
For sure.
But I'm glad these Batman movies exist, though. I'm glad we're getting a second one. I think it could be enjoyable. I like seeing our Pats. Yeah, he's a very talented actor. A lot of people just, you know, pin him down to Twilight, and they're like, that's all he ever was is Twilight. But he's made, like, you know, Good Time, High Life, Cosmopolis. Like, he's done all these other movies, Tenet, like all these indie films and even big films. And it's like, no, he's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He's got talent. But people just haven't really gave him any attention because he does all the weird indie stuff. He didn't come back into the mainstream until basically Batman. Yeah. Everyone blew up over that because it's a superhero. Everyone cares about superheroes now. Yeah. I'm trying to think, what have we not touched on in the actual movie of Batman?
I mean, we've touched on, like, a lot of the major points.
I know the funeral scene was great.
Yes.
I think that scene is so well directed and suspensefully driven. Like, it builds up so well when he gets into the actual funeral, and then he's looking around, you hear the screams, he keeps looking around, and then you hear the car revving up as it gets closer, and then he just looks up and just sees the silhouette of Riddler just standing over him in the balcony, and then the car breaks through and he grabs the kid. Yeah. It's all done so well, and the guy has the bomb on his chest and everything. It's so good. And I love that kid, too. Because I think at the beginning of the movie when, after the mayor's dead and he's walking around that investigation crime scene area and he walks past the kid's room and he sees the kid and he's like staring at him. And even Alfred knew when he saw him on like his little contact lens, he's like, he sees himself in the kid. He's like, just lost his parent. Like that's good stuff. That's the kind of stuff I like to see because that's actually good filmmaking, visual storytelling and everything. So that I'll give that to Matt Reeves and the Batman. It has a lot of good, like in-depth, good shots like that are in it. But at the end of the day, the Warner Bros. Still runs it, so they're still gonna try and stick their nose in it and be like, well, we still have to make money. You can't make an artsy Batman film.
One thing I liked too was the scene where Batman goes to talk to the Riddler after he's already locked up.
Yes.
And he thinks that the Riddler knows that Bruce is Batman.
Yeah.
That was a very intense scene, and then that wasn't what it was at all.
Yes. That was such a good bait and switch.
Yeah.
I love that too, because the whole time he's in the apartment, after they've caught Riddler, they're like, oh my God. He sees the stuff on the walls. He's like circling Wayne, circling this, like I know the real you and everything. And he's like, I don't think I'll be Batman anymore after this. And then he goes to talk to Riddler, and it's one of the best red herrings ever.
Yeah.
Because I fully was believing that too. I was like, okay, so he knows he's Bruce Wayne. How is he gonna get out of this?
Yeah.
And he's just like, I knew you'd help me all along. Because it's Wayne's. It's Bruce Wayne. The next one has to die and everything. And he was just another piece of the puzzle. And then he kind of registers them. He's like, wait, he thinks I'm like going to join his side. He doesn't know I'm Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of anxiety because, my mind was rolling and I'm like, he's going to have to kill him. Like this, he's going to bust through there and beat his head into the wall.
Great. That would have been such a good Batman scene if he had to actually like kill Riddler to hide his identity.
Yeah.
That would be some interesting. God, though, Matt Reeves would be in the doghouse, though. He'd be in the bell jar if he did that. Because fandoms, stands or whatever, they're called stands for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that'll sit there and write letters to you like the Eminem song and threaten to kill you.
Yeah.
Someone does that with Batman, like BVS. Batman uses a gun in that.
Mm-hmm.
Zack Snyder has him in one scene use a gun, and it's to save Superman's mom because he's doing the trauma loop thing.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't save his mom, so he's saving Superman's mom by any means necessary, even using a gun.
Yeah. And
people gave Zack Snyder so much shit for that. It's like, Batman would never use a gun. And it's like, okay, but that was the only way he was going to save his mom in that situation.
Right.
So in that situation, he didn't really care about the whole not use a gun rule, because in his mind, he was using a gun to save the person that the gun took in the first place.
Right.
So it's kind of null and void at that point. He's like, I don't give a shit if I use a gun because I'm saving my mom. And it's kind of like if Matt Reeves did anything like that with the Batman. And I think a lot of people have noticed that with superhero stuff now. The fandom's so toxic that it's like they can rarely stray off too much from the source material, because if they do, the fans will just flock, just come after them, and it's like they'll not be able to do anything. I mean, they did the same thing with Zack Snyder with Man of Steel. It's like, that's not Superman. That's not Superman. You can't do that. It's like, all right, but you should let people have their own interpretations.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I think Robert Pattinson's doing a good job with his kind of own little interpretation. A lot of people gave him the emo boy, My Chemical Romance shit, where when he takes off his mask and it's like all the eyeliner, his hair is coming down his face.
Yeah, but it didn't. If you actually watch the movie, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like he's only got the makeup on because of the eye holes on the suit, and his hair looks like that because he's a young kid and it's all messed up because he took the mask off. Like, it's not. Yeah, he's like angsty and emotional, but not in like the emo way. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think people just take it out of context.
Yeah.
People see pictures. A lot of people do that nowadays, or people see set photos, or people see like promo pictures that are taken on set and they look professionally done and everything, and they immediately are just like think they understand the movie and think they understand scenes and everything, and they start memeing it or making fun of it without actually watching the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, people just take stuff out of context. The whole scene, where he's on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
There was set photos that leaked of that the dude, they had a stunt double on the bike, and he actually fell over on the bike in the rain going through the graveyard and stuff. And people were like, this movie is about to suck. And it's like, people just take it out of context. Like one paparazzi shot of a dude on the bike just falling over, where he doesn't have a cape on because it's going to be CGI'd in because it's to flow in the wind and everything. It's like, you're taking a set photo out of context and thinking, oh yeah, the movie's going to suck based off that. Yeah. It's like, come on now. What does that mean? What does that amount to? But that's the internet for you, I guess. They just want to pick apart everything. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. Like we're doing.
It's the world we live in. Yeah. Look at us.
Well, we did our first episode of Cinequest.
Hell yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Same.
Maybe we'll be back.
Hopefully.
Maybe we won't.
I got a lot to say about movies.
Do you?
Yeah. I have a lot to say that Addison's not going to agree with about movies.
Probably not. You're absolutely right. You like Requiem for a Dream.
I do.
Glorified dare ad.
Well, we'll do an episode on it.
All right. We're out.
All right.